Well, good Tuesday evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel. Hope everyone tuning in, either live or on replay, had a great holiday weekend. I know I did. Hopefully there was some bowling balls under the tree for you if that's your thing, or some accessories. It's always great to wake up Christmas morning to this time of year. But either way, hope you had a great weekend with family and loved ones, and really, kind of got into the joy of the holiday season, as it were. I know I did. So best wishes to everyone moving forward here as we head toward 2023. This is actually the last show of the calendar year, and then we're moving on to a new year and new shows. We've got some great stuff coming up, which I'll tell you about in just a little bit. For right now, I do want to mention that I'm hoping for the best for PBA Hall of Famer Dave Davis. Episode 96 guest Len Nicholson posted on Facebook this morning asking for prayers for Davis, and later commenting that he had some complications after a heart surgery. Davis is an 18-time PBA champion on the tour. He is in both the PBA and USBC Halls of Fame, and was a coach and mentor to Parker Bone III, as we learned about in episode 51. USBC reported that he had also had open heart surgery in February 2021. So best to Dave and his family during what must be a very difficult time. Really hoping for the best for him. Just a great tour champion and really legend in our sport. So best to Dave Davis tonight. We have the biggest amateur event in the Eau Claire, Wisconsin area coming up after we turn the calendar over to 2023. The Chippewa Valley Match Games is coming up Saturday and Sunday, January 7th and 8th at Wagner's Lanes in Eau Claire. It's $100 to enter, and there are 2 squads of qualifying on Saturday. They'll cut down to the top 24 for Sunday's match play, and then they'll have a 5-person step ladder to determine the champion. And that's where we'll pick up live action right here on the Bowling with the Fef channel. You can see the full step ladder live right here. It starts around 2 p.m. Central on Sunday the 8th, but that's kind of fluid. It depends on exactly when match play ends. So I'll try and keep you posted on the Bowling with the Fef social channels. But Dave Langer won that event last year. Looking forward to a great tournament at Wagner's. It always is. Tournament director Denny Burkhart always puts on a great event, and it'll be great to live stream the finals once again for the second year in a row. Then later on in January, I'll be headed to Waterloo, Iowa for the 2023 Peacock Classic NCAA bowling action at Cadillac XBC. Upper Iowa University hosting this event for the second year. Last year was the inaugural event. Valparaiso won it. That was earlier this year, and you can see live coverage of all 3 days right here on the Bowling with the Fef channel. A big shout to Upper Iowa University and Coach Nicole DePaul for bringing me back to live stream this thing once again. We'll run it back one more time, and really looking forward to some great women's collegiate bowling action. Well, Bowling with the Fef is brought to you by Chip Magnet Salsa. Chip Magnet is a local company, at least local to me, here in the Eau Claire, Wisconsin area. They distribute quality salsas, relishes, and more to stores in 38 states and Canada. You can see a couple of the flavors right there: Wildly Delicious and Mango Habanero. You can find Chip Magnet at Woodman's and Meyer in Rockford, Illinois. You can also order online, chipmagnetsalsa.com. That's where you can get your fix anytime. They'd be willing to take your order. They'll ship it anywhere. and you will have yourself some of the best salsa on the planet. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards. And a big thank you, as always, to Chip Magnet for supporting Bowling with the FEF. Well, our guest tonight is the 2022 Intercollegiate Singles Championship runner-up, and he was a two-time All-American at St. Ambrose University in Davenport, Iowa, recently won a PBA regional event, and has his sights set on bigger and better in 2023. Let's bring him out here. His name is Nate Stubler. He is coming on in an episode that we're calling The Family Business. And Nate, welcome to Bowling with the FEF.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And to everyone out there, just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays, and hope everyone's staying warm with their family. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for spreading the word. That was very nice of you to share the link, and hopefully a lot of your friends got the message and can hear you share your bowling story tonight. I want to start out by talking about a social post that you put on Facebook after ISCs earlier this year. You said that you are proud to announce that you will be pursuing your dreams of competing on the PBA Tour come January 2023. Is that still the plan?
Yeah. So I'm actually pretty much yesterday, the day after Christmas, I really started gearing up for tour and all again. So it's kind of weird, I'll admit, because normally when it comes to the college tour and trying to prep for that, I take a big break in June and then really start gearing up in August and, for the 8-month long haul of it. But, now that the tour starts in January, it was kind of weird where in that time I didn't really have a whole bunch going on. So I didn't really take that big break then. So I had to switch that over to this December and take the break. So now that Christmas is over, pretty much time to start really getting back into practicing, get back into the gym and everything. So yeah, the game plan is still to take on the tour full time in January, January to May. And I'm very thankful. I know you can't really see it, but I just want to say a huge thank you to my sponsor, Hammer, for upgrading me in my contract and ultimately helping me along the way. So
yeah, this is the time of year for that. Oh, got a little echo there, but this is definitely the time of year for that thing. Glad to see that they're supporting you and really living out what is a dream to many. You've got a few friends here. Drake says Stubby. So he's watching live. C. Hardine says Nate the Great. And a former guest, Jerry Mars, says Nate and FEF. And glad to have all of you here live tonight watching us talk bowling with Nate Stubler. Episode 99 guest Brandon Mooney told me that he's happy to see your journey on tour and he wishes you a lot of success. He says he always tells you that he wants 10% of the winnings since he drills your bowling balls. What are your thoughts on that?
We'll see. I mean, to be fair, he hasn't really done me wrong lately. I think I started going to him for drilling equipment, I think, in the last 3 or 4 months. And ever since then, he's been perfect with every bowling ball, every recommendation and the layouts. So anyone that's drilled a bowling ball for me knows that I'm extremely picky. So I always try to just pretty much go to the best, and Brandon has not failed me once yet. So we'll negotiate the 10%, maybe 5%, maybe 10. We'll see. But very thankful for him.
No, I'm right there with you as far as pickiness in bowling ball drilling, and I know I'll never have a deal like that with my pro shop operator because he'll probably have to pay me 10%, because I keep donating in some of these events. But we mentioned Drake. I circled back with him. He came on in episode 102, and he told me that for the amount of time that he's been able to bowl against you in college and bowl with you in summer events, he says if people don't think that you are going to be one of the greatest, then they should start. I've heard multiple times that you're a pretty humble guy. To have someone of Drake's caliber also on the left, I feel like your games are pretty similar. To have him say something like that, how does that feel?
It's very kind. I mean, seriously, I'm one of the biggest things that I'm thankful for in this game are the friendships that I've built through it, and especially, I mean, getting to know Drake and getting to throw Mooney through the years, and so many other people, through this game. Like I really can't say thank you to everyone enough for, especially, all the kind words, and really I'm thankful for all the friendships and relationships that I've built throughout of it. So, for those guys at that caliber, especially, we know Drake, he's a national champion in college, and congratulations to you again, Drake. That's awesome. It means a lot to me. It really does mean the world. So, yeah, very thankful for those guys.
Yeah. Jerry wants me to ask you if you ever had a weight, I'm guessing hole, drilled in a ball before qualifying and lead. Yes, he did say weight hole. Have you ever had a weight hole drilled in a ball before qualifying and lead?
Yeah. So, funny story. So, I want to say I was 16 years old, and I was bowling my first ever professional regional tournament. And I bowled it. It was at the Super Bowl, my parents' old bowling center. And, I mean, I've always wanted to bowl the regional since I was, a little kid bowling the pro-ams, always wanted to bowl an actual tournament. And finally I get this opportunity, and I had a track blue paradox, which favorite bowling ball of all time. I've probably drilled like 6 or 7. So if anyone knows anyone out there with blue paradoxes that don't have any holes in them, please let me know. So the next morning on Saturday, I show up for the qualifying portion, and on my pair, it's Jeff Riggles, and all of a sudden, like, had no clue he was going to be there at the tournament or on the list or anything. Sean Rash is on my pair. And I was so nervous. I was like, man, like, this is the first time I've ever bowled really against a professional, with a professional. And of course he was on my pair. So I was so nervous about that. And obviously weight holes at the time were pretty much a requirement for the most part. So we're bowling in practice, and he actually did me a very big favor, which I'm thankful for. But I think I'm 3 or 4, shots in practice, and he picks up my bowling ball and looks at it. And him and Jeff Riggles are talking, and they're like, we don't think he can throw this. Like, we think this ball needs a weight hole. So I'm like confused about the whole thing. And he's like, well, in practice, like, whatever. But he's like, if you throw this in qualifying, technically you're supposed to be disqualified. So, I'm kind of freaking out, and I'm like, I don't really know what to do. So then actually in the middle of practice, Sean takes the bowling ball, goes back to the pro shop, does the measurements and checks the requirements on it, and decides to actually put a weight hole in it for me. And so fortunately I was actually able to throw the bowling ball during the competition. And that's something that, I know Sean can be a controversial figure, but for that reason, like, I will forever be a fan, a supporter, and I'll forever be thankful for him. Honestly, yeah, he could have disqualified me at that time, but being that it was my first regional and all, like, I had no clue, truthfully. And yeah, we actually meant to put a weight hole in it when I first got it drilled, but we kind of forgot about it. So, so fortunately, I was able to throw it. I think I shot 240 game 1. And Sean, we kept joking back and forth all day about the weight hole incident. And I was able to actually lead qualifying at that tournament. So it was pretty cool for my first ever regional to be able to do that.
Yeah. Wow. What a class move by Sean. I love that story. Sean's actually come on the show before. He has been very receptive when I've asked him questions over email. So I got to say, I'm a fan too. But Jerry says it was priceless. You were upset at first and then grateful.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I remember seeing him a few years later, and we were joking about it. He's like, Stubby just had an idea before the rest of us, when they decided to actually get rid of the weight hole rule. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Jay Santos says, hi, Fef. Thanks again for tuning in, Jay. Really glad you're catching these shows live. It's great to have you here. So let's get on to your bowling story. I was listening to an episode of the From the Bleachers podcast where you explained that you started bowling when you were just 2 years old, as your father and uncle both owned a bowling center. Let's go back to them. Were they competitive bowlers or just in the business of it?
For the most part, they bowled tournaments and all on the side, but more so the proprietor aspect of it. I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't see is when you're the proprietor, when you own the business, it's hard to make sure everything's running smoothly and, handle it, the 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and then still probably have the motivation to bowl on the weekends. So, when they were young, both my parents, so my grandfather actually owned a bowling center. I think in 1963 they bought it, or my grandfather and my grandmother did. And then, so my dad and uncle, they've been bowling ever since. But and once they started getting older, they kind of realized that they were going to be more on the proprietor side of it, rather than trying to chase the dream of it. Yeah. In 1988, my grandfather decided that he wanted to move. So essentially they moved to a different town, which was like 10 minutes away, but they upgraded from an 8-lane bowling center to a 16 at the time. And then even since then, they've added on to 24. Always pretty much, ever since I could remember, I've been a part of the game, and for the most part, my family has too.
Yeah. So starting out that young, I ask most people on this show about what it was like to start out, and I'm guessing you don't have many memories of being 2 years old. None of us do. Tell me what your folks have told you about, what it was like when you were getting started in the game.
I'll try to keep the story short, but I think I got a few of them to my knowledge.
Okay.
So pretty much from what I was told was that every time when my parents would be at the bowling center, like they couldn't wait for preschool to start, because anytime I was at the bowling center, I always wanted to bowl. So they'd be working, they'd be in the office, but then I'd be like, hey, I want to go bowl. And apparently I would just kind of bug them about that. But pretty much ever since I could pick up a bowling ball, I've wanted to bowl. So every time I was there, there's a few pictures of me. I don't know where they're at, but I'm sure I can find them on Facebook of just this little kid with a little bowling ball, just trying to like shove it down the lane. So, and then also, pretty much, I guess I got off bumpers at the age of 4, and I was a bowling fool as a kid. I think there was one night during Cosmic Thunder. I guess they had all 24 lanes going, and there was a comedy show. And normally when there was a comedy show going on, my parents would take care of that, watch that and all. And, I would bowl if I was up there. So I decided to go bowl, and, eventually the night got busy, and so all 24 lanes ended up becoming full. I guess the manager went to my dad and was like, hey, I might need this lane. Is it okay if I kick off your kid? And my dad's like, well, how many games has he bowled? And the manager goes, 17. So he's bold enough. You can kick him off finally. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Getting ready for those long format tournaments, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, if I try to bowl 17 games now, it's like I hurt for 3 days. But, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, it wasn't an issue.
Sure. Yeah. So tell me about maybe the first or one of the first bowling memories that you have, since, it's really been your life, from the start.
That's tough. Probably, I remember, I think I was like 5 or 6 years old bowling in league. And like, this is probably the earliest memory that I have. I think I was throwing a tornado, and I remember I needed it was the coolest thing ever. Like, I've never shot 200 before. And I guess like the last game of league, I was going for 200. And I think the last ball, I got like a 2 count or something like that. And people were like joking, like at the time, I get told this story a lot, and they're like, people like they have 290 on the board, and 292 is like the magical score nobody can get. And they're like, I don't know how you were going for 200 and you magically got a 2 count to blow it and shoot like 195. So, so that's probably like the earliest memory I have was I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to shoot 200. And all of a sudden, ball's hooking. And I'm just, this little kid just upset as ever because I shot like 195 with a 2 count or something like that. So, but other than that, that's probably the earliest memory I really have of bowling. But kind of a funny background story though, I'll share. So I'm adopted. So when it comes to getting into bowling, like I was very fortunate with that situation where, essentially, I was an adoption story. And that's why every time, especially when I share stuff on Facebook or when I, tell people like, oh, I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for that. I am very thankful for my situation, being that, I've been able to sort of become the bowler that I am today. And I've had the opportunities that I've had throughout the game. And, like I said before, the relationships I've built, because, there's obviously a chance that could have not been the case necessarily. So, yeah, so I thought that was kind of a cool thing to share, that, yeah, essentially I was adopted, and, I'm very fortunate for this. So,
Yeah. Well, good on your folks for, for taking you in and molding you into, into the player you've become. That is pretty awesome.
right.
Um, you had mentioned that that tornado. Was that your first bowling ball?
The first bowling ball I ever had, I think it was a Mickey Mouse plastic bowling ball I had. Um, and then, yeah, I think I got that at like 2 or 3 years old. And then it used to be, I gotta find it. It might be in my storage unit currently, but I think it was like 4 or 5 was like the last time I really threw it. So I still have the little like finger holes in it from when I was a little kid. So that's always kind of cute to go back and take a look at that. But yeah, between the Mickey Mouse and I think a Tom and Jerry bowling ball too. So, but yeah, the tornado was probably the first reactive bowling ball I've ever had.
Yeah. There you go. Tell me about what the center was like. I mean, obviously you were there a lot. You said I think if memory serves, this is the 16 lane center that you're learning.
This 24 lane. So I
This
think
is
it was
24.
two. It was either 2000 or 2001. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's when they added on an extra 8 lanes to turn into 24.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, so it's 24 lanes. I mean, every bowling center is a little different. They're kind of like baseball stadiums. No two are the same, right?
Yeah.
So, tell me about some of the, the unique features, the quirks, the, whatever you want to call it about your home center.
Um, well, I definitely will say that I'm very fortunate to grow up in the bowling center that I did, because, when I was a little kid, obviously every single tournament that I bowled was pretty much there. Bowling youth events didn't quite travel until I started bowling, like Illinois State scholarship youth tours. So between that and pretty much up until like travel league and high school bowling, Super Bowl is all I knew. And it's always been known for being a cleaner bowling center. The lane panels are very well taken care of as well, and just very, very much up to date. I'm not going to say state of the art, but very, very much up to date and very, very clean. So when I started going to other tournaments and seeing that some of the other bowling centers, um, not as up to date, not as technologically advanced, I want to say, with control monitors and all. I realized that like where I get to practice, it's honestly a dream come true. In terms of the pin setters and all, they don't have like that where you can set it up individually, but that's probably the only thing that I feel like that place is missing. And then ever since the ownership has taken over, because my family sold it in 2020, the new ownership, they've done a really great job with renovating it and keeping it up to date. So yeah, I remember they updated the bar, they added on some space in there too. So they're doing a really great job with competing with some of these places that are becoming more. How do I want to say it? Like the places that have the escape rooms and the mini golf, and adding on these extra things. So the fact that the Super Bowl is still strictly pretty much bowling and a bar and a pro shop, like they do a wonderful job there.
Yeah. Jerry has some great things to say about your family. He says they're amazing people. He's bowled regionals at your center since his first year on the regional level. Love the center and the family, which is high praise from a guy who bowls quite a few regionals. So,
Oh yeah, and I'm very happy that as I've grown up, I've gotten to have a good relationship with Barry too, and seeing him at all these tournaments. So I have nothing but nice things to say about him as well, and my family feels the same way. So
yeah, I'm kind of regretting not hitting him up for some comments ahead of time. I missed on that one, but
right.
you can't hit them all out of the park.
True.
Um, Tell me about when you're 12 years old. You mentioned on that podcast, the From the Bleachers show, that you shot your first 300, and I think back to my first 300, I was like 21. So, I mean, a 12-year-old shooting a 300 is a big deal at any time. But what was it like? Kind of take me through the end of that.
So I remember, I want to say it was probably I might have been very close, like just at the end age of 10 or just going on 11, when I had heard about this kid from Rockford, who I think was Jake Nimps, was the youngest kid in Illinois to ever shoot a 300. So, for, being a kid, I was like, that was kind of what I wanted to shoot for. Was I wanted to like, all right, like I want to beat that. I want to be the youngest kid to ever shoot 300. And unfortunately, obviously that didn't happen. But I want to say I probably, before I ever shot my first 300 at the age of 12, I think I had like 4 299s between the age of like 11 and 12. So for some reason, I could just never, honestly, I could just never get the corner pin out in the last shot. Like, same thing with college and all too. But yeah. So yeah, ultimately, sorry, I'm trying to think back on it a little bit, but I remember I was throwing a Mission Unknown at, I think, Pheasant Lanes. And, I'm very happy that someone recorded it for me. I think Adam Vox was the one that recorded it. So it's funny. All my friends, because I was a little bit heavier at the time too. So all my friends, they really like to watch the video and joke about it and go back and see the what they call the Stubby Shuffle. So every time I'm on pace for 300 or something, they're like, "Oh, you got to shoot 300. You got to do it again." And I'm like, "Well, I joke that's why I continue to shoot 299 now, is because I'm like, well, I don't really want to bust the move out again." But I mean, the excitement was definitely, it was there, because I feel like at that point it was almost up to a year prior that I started getting really close with the 290 and the 299. So when I finally got it, I was like, there's such a weight off my shoulders, and just being around. I think it was bowling a state tournament as well with some good friends from the league, and yeah, that was just like that was a really fun memory that I had.
Yeah, I bet. Sammy says lefty luck.
Right. All about the lefty luck. Hey, I'd rather be lucky than good any day, they say.
For sure. I certainly would. Jimmy says, I get sick of one-sided things and bye. So, do you know Jimmy?
I don't know Jimmy,
Okay. Well, I guess Jimmy's gone. Better luck next time, Jimmy. So your dad, is the proprietor. In the junior program, is he also the coach?
So pretty much so when it came to leagues and all, we had leagues on Fridays and Saturdays. My dad, uncle, and my mom, they all helped out, as well as some other really good friends from the Super Bowl. They'd help out with the youth program, with the bumper program. And then pretty much all throughout high school, my dad was my high school coach. I think he started coaching the LaSalle Peru high school team in 2000 or 2001. So even at that point, by the time he retired, he almost had a good 20 years into it. So yeah, he was pretty much essentially my coach a majority all throughout my whole life, until I think I went to Bill Spigner, Coach Bill Spigner, in 2019, near the end of the year. But yeah, other than him and the Team USA coaching that I've been fortunate to have, for the most part, I was pretty much raised and taught by my family.
Oh. As I told you, I talked to Brandon, and he remembered you two bowling for different high schools in the same part of Illinois, because that's kind of where he's from too. He told me that he knew you were a stud when he watched you strike your socks off at Illinois High School State, and you had back-to-back 800s while bowling in your block to eventually run over the state tournament. And you'd end up winning and setting the record for state tournament, which still stands. He says he doesn't think anyone will ever break that record. What is it like to shoot back-to-back 800s? Condition aside, on anything, what's it like?
It was crazy. I remember just going back to that, like the year prior, it's a 12 game tournament basically. In the day prior, or the year prior, I was leading after the first 6 games of the tournament, and I was just like, at that point I was so nervous. I was like, I've never experienced anything like this before. I was like, I wanted to win so badly as a junior, and I ended up blowing the lead the next day. So I think I finished 4th my junior year, and pretty much my whole goal, like coming into senior year, was I'm not losing this tournament. I was like, what happened last year? I was like, I was in that position and I blew it. So I just like I think that's kind of where that competitive drive like really first started to dive into my head. Was I wanted to win it so badly. So every practice, every time I bowled, I continued to think about that tournament. And don't get me wrong, I didn't think that, like at the time my mentality was, all right, I'm going to win this state tournament. I'm going to, just do whatever it takes to win. So I had no clue that I was going to shoot back-to-back 300s, back-to-back 800s. So it's something that honestly, when I kind of look back now, I really just, I try to take it in and I'm like, wow, like, I can't even believe I did that. Like just being honest. Cause now, especially you can ask anybody, like when I bowl on house now, like it's not the greatest. So, yeah, I always joke. I'm like, man, I was like, if I could channel that like high school Nate Stubler again, that would be great. I was like on house, it's tough, but yeah, just that. Yeah, I mean, that was a great weekend overall. Just so many memories I created, and I remember my teammates came down to support me and all too. So I was extremely thankful for that. But yeah, it's crazy to look back on and occasionally see like on the state board, the state side and the National High School Bowling Association to see like the numbers still stand. So I'm hoping that the record doesn't get broken for a while, but we'll see.
Yeah. Vinny Gray put up a trio of goats.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Vinny.
I believe that's what those are. And Rocky Harrison, good evening, Fef. Good evening, Rocky. Thanks for tuning in live. He says, from one lefty to another, good luck in the PBA.
Awesome. Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
There you go. Tell me about the high school format. I mean, in different states and different areas, it runs differently. I remember my high school experience being 100% Baker. How did it work for you? And was that the kind of thing that got you prepared for the next level?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because like I was always under the impression in high school everyone bowled a very similar format, but then like I've heard that in Wisconsin it's mostly Baker, and in Iowa I think they do like for their state finals it's like a 2-game pinfall or something, which is that's crazy to think about, but. I think the longer formats really benefited us in Illinois high school bowling, especially because all of our tournaments on Saturdays, they were the same as the college Saturdays. So we didn't have any Baker, but they were all the 6-game, 5-man teams pretty much. So very, very long days, which pretty much got me prepared a lot for the Saturdays. But yeah, going from one day of bowling to 2 days of bowling at that time, being 18, 19 years old, it's a lot. Like it's quite the adjustment. And yeah, I was actually very excited for college bowling for the most part because I've never gotten to really bowl Baker beforehand. So, and that was something that, I've always enjoyed team bowling more than the individual bowling. So when I got the opportunity to finally start bowling Baker, I was like, man, this is fun. Like it's always been that experience, I feel like with team sports that you finally get to, we don't get to experience that a whole bunch in bowling, especially now at the professional level. So you need to do that in college. I looked forward to it a lot more. So I think that that part made it easier, just looking forward to doing the team stuff on Sundays. But in terms of like the longevity of the entire tournament format, I feel like it's very hard to prepare for. So
sure. Until you're in the thick of the battle, as it were. You mentioned college bowling, and we already mentioned that you were at St. Ambrose, but how did you end up there? I don't remember St. Ambrose really, being in my, in my peripherals as I bowled in college, but I bowled in college a long time ago. St. Ambrose, is currently the number 8 ranked program in men's USBC collegiate, and they're a perennial power. So how did that recruitment go? Did they come to you? Did you go to them? What happened?
So I think initially, I don't remember how old I was, but I was bowling a tournament in Illinois, and the coach for St. Ambrose, Eric Littig, he was at the tournament, and at the time I've never met him before. I didn't really know much of him, but I remember he was talking to my dad, and he's like, I think your kid would be a really good player to add to St. Ambrose. So, I think probably a year or two went by, and I started really doing the college tours and all. And when I first went to trying to think. I looked at 4 schools originally, and they were Lindenwood, McKendree, and Wichita. And they all had something really good about them. And I don't mean to be bad about any program or anything, but they all had their pros and they all had their cons that benefited me differently. And I swear, like, I think it was a sign, but I kept getting like letters in the mail from St. Ambrose University. And I was like, I didn't even start looking here. Like, I was pretty much set on those 3 schools for a minute. And when I went to Wichita State, actually when I did my tour there, I found out that I had gotten accepted. So pretty much, I was going to wait a little bit of time, and essentially I was probably going to commit to Wichita. But then my dad, we had a conversation about it, and I was like, I really like Wichita, but I was like, let's take a tour, let's check out the St. Ambrose. It's only an hour away from me. Let's see what they have to offer. And I did the tour, and between the campus and the players and my teammates, like it was a match made in heaven. Like that was instantly when I left the school that day, I knew instantly that I wanted to be at St. Ambrose. And the biggest part of it was, obviously there was the bowling aspect, but I thought what was going to benefit me for the long term. So, obviously at the time I still wanted to try the professional tour and I wanted to give it a shot, but in case it didn't work out, I needed a backup plan. So I was looking to go into accounting since high school. And then when I went there, I found out their master's program, they had a really good deal for it. And their school is very much known for the business aspect, and they had a really great accounting program. So that was pretty much the main reason was, bowling was a part of it, but it was more so I wanted to go somewhere that was going to be known for education, and where I could have that backup plan. Yeah. So I completed my master's at St. Ambrose, and ever since then, I mean, it's been great. I think at the start of it, it was kind of rough at first, either way, getting adjusted to the college and the college bowling. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't regret my decision at all. I've made some really great friends there and teammates and all, and we've done some really cool things at St. Ambrose. So fortunately, we never got to the national title, but we've done some really cool things there. So
yeah, and the more and more I do these interviews, the more I realize that really any coach worth their salt is going to tell you the same thing. You're here for the education. The bowling is important, but you're a student athlete and not, the other way around. So that's really cool that it worked out that way for you. Drake mentioned that Michigan is 2 Bakers and then 2 team games for the league as far as high school is concerned. So yeah, it's kind of all kinds of different formats across even the Midwest here. Is college where you met Drake?
Yeah, so I met him, I want to say it was probably my junior year that I met him, bowling at Whitewater. And I don't recall the very first time that I actually like officially met him, but I remember watching him bowl and I was like, this kid's good. And then even actually, no, I think it might have been a Lockport tournament 2 or 3 years ago. It was like the first time that I really talked to him and gotten to meet him. And I'm pretty sure he beat me in the championship. So ever since then, I've always got to know him through that. So yeah.
Yeah. He told me that you don't fit the lefty stereotype, but it's in a great way. He says you don't need to lean on urethane to score, but you use pure talent to get things done. You also have the versatility of a Swiss Army knife, LOL, but you have so many tools and tricks in your bag that a lot of other lefties and bowlers can't do comfortably. How does that become a part of your bag, your arsenal? I mean, a lot of us, work tirelessly to master one release, to play one part of the lane, to get versatile enough that you're known by somebody like Drake for that versatility. How do you do it?
So a lot of it, I mean, pretty much at a young age, I was taught being left-handed. My dad used to always tell me, he's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many strikes you throw. He's like, you have to be able to make your spares. So, and that's something that, as time went on, I started bowling more competitive tournaments, especially in harder conditions. Spare shooting, like it's essential. Like I can tell you, there's a lot of tournaments where, it seems like I'm striking a lot, or, I've been able to put up a lot of good games. But if you watch it, it's because when I'm in my good tournament, in my routine and all, like I don't tend to miss a lot of spares. So I always try to fill frames, always try to leave makeables. And that's like a big thing, because when you're left-handed, it's either feast or famine, and more times than not, I feel like it's honestly famine. So in order to keep myself in tournaments, it's always been the spare shooting that's really been the key. And then one of the other big things too was so I was fortunate to have Dr. Dean Hinnitz at Team USA camp in 2019. But post college, I started reading a lot of his books and started reading a lot about sports psychology, just trying to help myself gear up for tour. And one of the portions that stood out to me was about make it your goal to be able to play on any condition, to be versatile, to make sure that you're able to compete on every level. And that's something that I realized it kind of always resonated with me, but I never really put into words or thought about it too hard. But yeah, it's like especially if you can try to be, like as he said, like a Swiss Army knife, like you're able to compete in any tournament that you bowl, especially when you're in the I'm trying to think how to say it, but yeah, essentially when you're really into the tournament mode, I should say, when you practice quite a bit, you're actually, well prepared. I mean, that's a big part of it. So yeah, it's huge to obviously make sure that you always have your A game down, but and honestly, like this is a tip for anybody, left-handed, right-handed, make sure that your B and C games are almost as good as your A game, because if you want to be able to compete, even if you're not able to win every single tournament, if you want to still be able to cash, get a check, compete, it's really important to have your B and C games up there.
Yeah. How close would you say you were with Cam? You mentioned him once before. He told me that you are by far one of the most talented bowlers he's ever seen. And when you parlay that with your work ethic, you get one of the greats. Cam is known pretty far and wide in many circles right now. Tell me about your relationship as teammates.
Yeah, dude, I love bowling with him. I mean, the 3 years that I actually got to compete with him, obviously the COVID year kind of stunk, but honestly, I'm thankful for it, because I got to bowl with him an extra 2 years because of it. So I was able to bowl during my 5th year, and just the relationship that I had with him on and off the lanes, like we had a lot of good times on the lanes, a lot of good times off the lanes, but yeah, I mean, essentially, like I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for having him as a teammate. And we've kind of had this conversation before about, where we would have ended up and all, but it's just like I've never had, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I've never had a teammate that works as hard as he has, especially to get to the level where he was. Because I remember it was right before USA team trials, my junior year, so it was his freshman year. And I mean, he was bowling like twice a day, 6 days, 7 days a week. And I mean, he ended up winning the amateur, obviously. And, I think he was either 18 or 19 at the time. And it's like, and he won the whole tournament. So that's, yeah, I mean, it was just, that kind of opened my eyes to like, okay. And I think a lot of it helped too, when it came to the St. Ambrose program, was we realized like, okay, we got something special here. Let's really work on it and all. So, yeah. So then the second semester, when I came back off of foot surgery, him and we just clicked like instantly. I mean, we were always really good friends, but when we actually started bowling together, like we did some really cool things in college. So I'm forever thankful to have him as a teammate, because he was probably the first time that I've ever really had. He's probably the first time I've ever really had a teammate that I felt was near that was probably near where I was at that point and all. And especially the fact that he was 2 years younger than me. I mean, he was miles ahead of me in that case. So it was good to have someone finally that I felt like, there were jokes about like Jordan and Pippen kind of thing, but it was really like that, where it was like we pushed each other that much harder in the gym and on the lanes. So yeah, just having him as a teammate, like I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have him as a teammate. And I can honest to God tell you that.
Cool. And of course, I was going to ask you about Coach, and let me preface this by saying, I reached out to him,
Mhm.
took a couple days to hear back, and he says, sorry for the delay. He had holiday stuff going on.
Mhm.
When do you need this by? And I said, well, if it could be last night, it would have been good, but if you can
Yeah.
get it to me on Tuesday, I'll work it in. And what I got was I don't know if you can see that, but a lengthy email response, and I want to read the whole thing, and that might be a little, intimidating, but this is really good stuff, and I think it would do you some good to hear it, and I want you to kind of react when it's all said and done. So, Nate came to St. Ambrose in 2017 and bowled for us for 5 seasons. He was one of the finest collegiate bowlers during his tenure, especially during his final 2 seasons. Nate is kind of a throwback to old school bowling. He said he doesn't lack for power, but he's not a power player. He's a good old fashioned shot maker. He can play anywhere on the lane. He's a tremendous clutch performer. He says, I look back over the past 5 years, and Nate is a huge part of why our program has ascended into the upper echelon of college bowling. We've won 2 sectionals, and we were within a game of the national championship 2 years ago. We won the 2020 Hoosier Classic and won the Tier 1 Kegel Classic twice. Nate was a huge part of that success. Over the past 3 years, he's won so many prestigious tournaments. He's won in the Ebonite Classic in Waterloo twice, and he's also won the 11th Frame Tournament in Dubuque twice. Most players will never win those once in their career, but he owns 4 of them. This past January, he led the U.S. Amateur in Las Vegas, but lost in the championship match and was somehow passed over for a spot on Team USA. This year, he finished runner-up at the Intercollegiate Singles Championship. Nate is coachable, and he truly understands the game as a top-level competitor. I've said for many years, I believe he has the ability and the determination to win many times on the PBA Tour, even though winning is not easy out there with the world's greatest bowlers. A lot of great bowlers have not won out there. Nate is one of bowling's nice guys, but he's also a fiery competitor who thrives on winning and having a chance to win. I've been coaching upper level bowlers for 33 years, including 13 years at the collegiate level. I believe Nate is as much of a complete player as I've ever had the privilege to coach. A lot of really good bowlers have come to St. Ambrose in recent years, and hopefully more in the coming years. Nate should be an inspiration to all of them. If you watch Nate when he competes, he's not the most graceful nor the most powerful. But I dare anyone to find a bowler more determined to succeed. And all the intangibles that determine greatness, versatility, work ethic, reading lanes, passion, humor, and compassion, Nate has them all. And despite all of his success, he remains extremely humble and very respectful of other bowlers' success as well. I've enjoyed watching Nate's career develop over the past 5 years. He will continue to succeed. Nate and I have always had a great relationship, and I can't thank him enough for trusting my judgment and my knowledge with his bowling and with our program. A bowler's success will come and go, but a bowler's legacy will be defined by how they competed and how they treated people. Nate competes the right way, and he treats people the right way, and regardless of what events he wins, he'll be remembered for those traits. Your
That
reaction?
was that was amazing. I mean, that was like that was very sweet. Yeah, I mean, to have those kind of words said about me, I mean that, wow. That's it. I'm speechless, honestly. I mean that, thank you, Eric, for those kind words and for sharing that. I mean, that really does mean a lot to me. So thank you.
Yeah. What kind of coach is he? I mean, different coaches do this different ways in hopes of, coming out with the same result, a national championship. But,
Mhm.
you know, what was he like to play for?
I mean, ultimately, yeah. I mean, he was a great players coach. A lot of good times, he was very personable, and honestly, I can share. There were a few times that when like anytime you're going through something tough, like he was a coach that 100% like you could share something with, and you would know that it wouldn't get out. Or I mean, just having certain one-on-ones, whether you're struggling with bowling or life in general. He was always someone that if you called, he would be on the phone with you for an hour, 2 hours, however long you needed. And I'm very fortunate that there were only a few times that I've needed that, or just someone to kind of talk to get stuff off my chest. And he's always been there to listen. So 100% of players coach like that. And you can anytime you see him at a college tournament, other players, I go up and talk to him. He'll talk to anybody. He'll joke with you. So yeah, in that sense, he was a great coach and a great mentor. So
Yeah. Drake says, "Amen, Eric. Amen." So he's with him there. Tyler wants to know: once you get to harder oil patterns in college or even pro, what kinds of knowledge have you learned or practiced to be most prepared for those tough conditions?
so the biggest, I mean, the biggest part of it, honestly, is and I've always tried to I've always tried to simplify the game and my approach to it. And granted, you can say what you want about me being left-handed, or lefties, righties, obviously dealing with transition a little bit differently, but it does happen on both sides. But for the most part, the number one key is repetition. And this was something that I kind of thought about beforehand too. Was when it comes to going to certain schools and other places, and I don't think there's ever been a cookie cutter way to bowl. There's been books about how to bowl better and certain ways than others, but at the end of the day, you've been bowling how you've been bowling pretty much since you could start bowling. And obviously you change things and you simplify the game and make it better. But the key is to make sure that whatever you are doing, you're comfortable doing it and being able to repeat shots. At the end of the day, think about it. This game is repetition. If you're going to shoot 300, obviously there's a lot of times there's a lucky strike in there too, but it's because you hit the pocket 10, 11, 12 times a game. So the biggest part of that is the repetition aspect of it. And then also I think when you really start to get to that elite level, it becomes past repetition. I think it's the mental aspect of it. And the more and more that I'm bowling these tournaments, especially throughout college, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot when I'm out on tour, is how important the mental game is. Because when you're bowling a tournament and everybody can repeat shots, everybody has either won, knows how to win, or has been in that position before, odds are they know how to repeat shots. So the biggest part is the mental game of it, the mental aspect of it. And, as it was stated before, I don't have the most perfect mechanics in the world, but I will argue that I have one of the better mental games, probably in the game, at least at the levels that I've competed in. So, yeah, I think the biggest part is, I think it's mental. Probably like golf, they say it's probably 90% mental. Just short-term memory when things don't go well, but constantly thinking, tinkering. Okay, how can I get to the pocket? What can I do better? Yeah, essentially it's mental game and repetition. When you really try to simplify the game, like that's all this game really is. And obviously there's transition and strategic moves and being able to do that. But once you get those two things down, then you can really start to work on diving into other aspects of it to improve your game.
Yeah. Well said. Looks like there's hope for the rest of us then. Jay says his 15-year-old son has a couple top 3 state finals in the Pepsi tournament and has recently started bowling in the Sport Pattern League. He has a 193 average, but only 171 in the Sports Shot League. I think that's awesome because, I mean, I never had that opportunity as a junior. Did you? Were there sport condition leagues for you?
No. So unfortunately, we never really got to deal with that either.
Yeah. So that's a huge feather in his cap for sure, Jay. Sammy says simply Stubler.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of the hashtag, or the whatever the saying was that Phil Brylow used when I won the last regional tournament. So yeah, simply Stubler, just trying to keep it simple.
Sure. Tell me about those high points in your collegiate career. Coach mentioned you're one game away from an ITC championship. You're one opponent away from an ISC.
Mhm.
What were those moments like for you? For being a part of these enormous fields where everybody's goal is to get, to be in that top spot, and you came, so close on
Mhm.
multiple occasions.
Essentially, and I don't mean to downplay it or anything, but the singles portion of the competition, it was definitely, it was cool and it was exciting to be a part of. But at the end of the day, like my goal when I was at St. Ambrose, it was never to win a singles title. It was to win as a team, and that's something that even throughout high school, throughout even grade school bowling when we had those competitions, I've always wanted to win as a team, and I've always wanted to win at the highest level as a team. So as cool as the ISCs were, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. Um, the one thing that I am probably the highest point that I'm proud of at St. Ambrose was, I think prior to my class coming in, I think the last time they qualified for sectionals was maybe like qualified for nationals was maybe 4 or 5 years prior. And just the fact that in my time there we were able to get to nationals 5 times, and just the way that the program continued to build, and especially I think a lot of teams too. It was after my sophomore year we graduated 4 seniors, and most of the time when it comes to programs, they really when that's the case, there's always that rebuilding. There's that little bit of a struggle, but fortunately, my junior year, like Cam came in, Will Jones came in, Jordan Monins came in, and we were able to really just continue to actually build up on where we were at. So probably my favorite, the high point of my career at St. Ambrose was probably the semester that I came back off of foot surgery, where we won I think 3 out of 4 tournaments, and those were the Midwest tournament, the Midwest. I think it's the Kegel Classic, the one in Addison, and that was St. Ambrose's first ever Tier 1 tournament win. So that was like the emotions that came off of that were amazing. And then even a month later, we won the Hoosier tournament as a team, and being able to beat the Wichitas, the McKendree, the Weber, and finally kind of putting ourselves in that conversation. That was probably my most proudest accomplishment, was to get St. Ambrose to be a part of St. Ambrose, and to be able to get us to that level. So yeah, so I mean and to even be in that conversation for the next 2 to 3 years with that program as well, and obviously they're still in the conversation now. Like that's probably what I'm most proud of when I look back at St. Ambrose, was where that team was, and eventually getting being a part of that team, and the camaraderie with the guys that we built, and just kind of the environment with that team, to push everyone to want to win and compete and say, hey, we can do this, we can be in that conversation, and then eventually doing it. I mean, it was great. Like that's probably like I said, that's probably the highlight of my time at St. Ambrose. And then the ISCs, it was really cool getting to bowl on television and obviously compete and still represent for St. Ambrose. But that was, to me, that kind of dwells in comparison to all the team accomplishments that we had at St. Ambrose.
Sure. Yeah. Do you think that individuals, teams need to learn how to win? You've won a lot individually. Your team won a lot, in college. Is there, a little something that you need to kind of not only compete, but get over the hump and start winning?
Um, so I kind of thought about this too before the podcast. That's probably the one thing that really drove me to. I think everybody needs to have like just that first itch of success, the first little bit of it, and then once you have that success, whether you're youth or however old, once you really once you feel, I guess kind of how great it feels to win, and it's like, all right, hey, like I want to do this again. I want to do this again and keep it going. I feel like that's where the drive really comes from, to the drive to compete, the drive to practice, to work out, to eat right, to really take care of, everything that is in your control, to really try to make sure that you're capable of winning, and just trying to keep it going as long as you can. So I think it was like, pretty sure it was like 13 years old. I won Illinois Pepsi, the tournament, and then like the grade school tournament, and then there was another tournament that I won too, and it was kind of like the trifecta of like youth bowling at the time. I felt like, so I'd ever since, like, that was probably the defining moment where I thought like, hey, I can do something with this game. It's like once you have that little bit of success, there's no reason that you can't do it again. So as long as you put in the work, as long as you practice, and just really try to keep your mental game strong, like anyone can do it, truthfully.
Yeah. Reggie A says, thanks, Nate, for being an awesome teammate and accepting Justin on the team. Wishing you nothing but success in your future. And if you're ever in Northern California, you have a place to stay. That's got to be pretty huge.
Awesome. I appreciate that. That's one of my old teammates' moms, Regina Abood. So thank you, Mrs. Abood, for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Tell me about, after college. We all kind of, go different directions. I mean, I became a once a week league bowler, and some people go more serious with it. They go into tournaments locally, regionally. How did you kind of keep that trajectory toward the PBA tour on track?
I think it's kind of interesting. So I'm actually doing my CPA exams for accounting, which are like these certifications we have to do after college. So being that like I was bowling in college for so long, and bowling out throughout high school, like I was so used to that honestly I feel like I'm not out of college yet. So being that I'm still studying and trying to earn my certification, it's yeah. And even I remember when everyone started going back to school and like the team started having practices, it felt so weird just being like, like I'm studying, but I feel like I should be doing that right now. So, but the biggest part was honestly just making sure like, hey, like I'll get to that point, the tour starts the end of January. So, come December, come January, I'll really start preparing for it then. So just trying to make sure that, I was still studying and all, and really trying to stay on top of that. So, sure. Yeah, but for quite a while, it felt like I still was in school. So it was almost not like a change, but still a little different.
Yeah. Another previous guest, Mark London, says Nate is great with the 2 8s in there.
There you go. Hey. Go Steelers, Mark. Go Steelers.
There you go. Brandon told me that his favorite memory of you is when he ran the stepladder to meet you in the championship match at the GIBA 11th Frame Open, and asked you rather, if you wanted to split the bet you win pot, in which you replied that you weren't in it. And as you can guess, you doubled in the 10th to beat him. So you did not get the bet you win pot money. Now, every event, he makes sure you're in it.
Yeah, I should make sure that the 10% that he wants, it's him paying. Like I'll make a deal. If he wants to pay for my bet you win, then I'll work out the 10% with him. But yeah, it's I mean, honestly, like where I grew up with bowling, it like brackets weren't a big thing, and neither was the bet you win pot. So yeah, the first time I bowled the GIBA, yeah, it was the first time I've ever bowled the 11th frame. I never did side pots or anything. So I was just like, all right, I'm just going to bowl this tournament, hope to win. And I did. And he's like, oh, did you do the bet you win? I'm like what's that? I'm like, he's like, it's an extra side pot. And I'm like, oh, I was like, I don't know, so I was never accustomed to it. And another quick story was, I remember bowling in Springfield, Illinois for a tournament. And this was the first time that I had gone away from youth. This was like the first tournament I bowled outside of it. And they're like, oh, do you want to get into brackets? And I'm like, brackets? Like, what's that? And most people, even like 19, 20, even if they were adult, like they knew what it was. And I was like, oh, like, sure. Like, now I'm thinking like brackets. At the time as a college kid, it was a lot of money, but I was like, sure. Like, I'll put a lot of money in. I was like, I'll throw $70 in and call that good. Meanwhile, they had like 500. I think the max was like $500 or $600 in brackets. So I had no clue. And yeah, and then I think I got some money back for that. And I was like, huh, like, this is cool, So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Brandon also mentioned that you guys have won doubles before. And he said he'd bowl with you again in a heartbeat if he's ever cool enough to bowl with you again. Is he?
Is Brandon cool? No, but no, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I love Brandon. Well, the thing was, so I bowled a tournament with him, and then it was actually like right after that Cam and I became teammates. And then for some tournaments, I think even like a short bit after, like Cam and I were like, why have we never been teammates together? Like, let's bowl doubles together. So I feel bad. I think it was just kind of the timing of that was I bowled with Brandon one time, and then right away, like Cam and I became teammates and started bowling together. So yeah, hey, if I'd be happy to bowl a doubles tournament with you, and even better if we can find a trios with you, me, and Cam. So yeah, I'd be happy to do it.
There you go. All right. One of the things that I kind of gleaned from you sharing the link to this show was that you and Brianna Clemmer have bowled the Lucy before. How did that work out, and what was it like?
So we've actually never bowled the Lucy before. No.
Oh.
So pretty much this upcoming year, this is gonna be our first year bowling together.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So how does that come about? Did you guys know each other before? Or?
Yeah. So I think Brianna was I think she was a year older than me in school. Either a year or 2 years. I don't recall exactly. But I remember always like watching her bowl and her like the unique like the arm out format. I was like it's awesome watching her do that. I'm like the fact that she's so consistent with it. Like I think it's awesome. And then I don't remember how we got in contact, but I remember it's either like a year or two ago we had kind of talked about it, but being that I wasn't really on tour or anything or traveling, I was like, man, I was like Texas, like that's a hike for a college kid kind of deal. So yeah, and we always kind of talked like, all right, like, hey, let's do it sometime. So yeah, so this will be my first year pretty much bowling the Lucy, and I'm fortunate to have Brianna as a partner. So I hope it goes well.
Cool. We kind of started things out by talking about where you go from here as far as the PBA tour is concerned. And you mentioned January through May. The first event is the U.S. Open. And I've got to ask if that's going to be your first event, because I didn't see you on the roster for the PTQ. Do you have to bowl the PTQ, or are you in the regular field?
No, so I'm currently in the regular field.
Okay.
I was kind of surprised when I got the email about it, but I don't know if it was because of where I finished at team trials or how exactly it was, but yeah, somehow I earned a spot for the automatic. So yeah, fortunately I don't have to bowl the PTQ for that tournament.
Cool.
And yeah, that'll be my first tournament. So
okay. And then in that stretch of time encompasses the World Series of Bowling, which I'm hoping to get to create some more content. So I imagine I see you there, right? Because it's on tour, it's relatively close to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Essentially, I mean, I'm pretty much planning on going on tour full time. So any bowling tournament or any PBA event that I can make, odds are I'll be there. And especially the World Series of Bowling. I mean, that's being that that's a little bit longer of a format and all too. It's kind of nice that it's so close to here, because I think it technically runs. Is it 12 or 14 days?
Yeah, they're about. It's usually a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very happy that it's close to here in case I have to run back to Iowa or anything quick. But yeah, I'm excited for that one too. So it should be good.
The one other thing Drake mentioned is that he truly wouldn't be surprised if you captured a PBA major in the next couple of years. What would that be like for you?
That would be a dream come true. I mean, truthfully, like ever since I was a little kid, having the dream of wanting to obviously bowl in the PBA and be like a professional bowler, that was it's always been a dream of mine. And the fact that I've been fortunate enough to be in this position where I get the opportunity to do it, I'm speechless. Like I'm very thankful for this opportunity, and yeah, ultimately I'm gonna work my tail off to get to that point, and hopefully the pins fall my way, and we'll see. But yeah, that would be. I mean, that obviously that's the goal out there, is not only to compete but to win as well. So I'm gonna try to put myself in the best position that I can. So
Good deal. Well, that is a good place to do two things. One, I want to remind people to subscribe to the channel because you don't ask, you don't get. So if you click that little logo in the bottom right, you can subscribe to the channel. It's perfectly free. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I'm about 190 some short. So every subscriber, has my endless gratitude because it's awesome. And I really appreciate all the support to the channel. It really does help me continue to make content. Mark mentioned Here We Go because that's kind of the rallying cry for his Pittsburgh Steelers. And he does say that speaking of side pots, if you ever bowl an over under SASBA, you'll have to brief you on the Calcuttas.
Deal. Yeah, I'd 100%. I would appreciate that. So that would be great.
Cool. Well, Drake, as we mentioned before, challenged you to be on the show. You took him up on the challenge, which we call Off the Sheet. So now I want to ask you to challenge somebody else. Doesn't have to be the greatest bowler in the world. Certainly can be, but certainly somebody who's passionate about the sport and has a unique story to tell. So Nate Stubler, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
So I'm going to challenge Alec Keplinger from Wichita State. We'll go a little bit West Coast with that one, and he's I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be my Roth Holman doubles partner this year. So yeah, I'd challenge you, Alec Keplinger.
Cool. Well, Alec, if you are watching, it'd be my pleasure to have you on. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Andrew Pfeffer, or you can email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com, and we will work on getting you in the schedule if you are at all interested. Our next episode coming up a week from tonight, Tuesday, January 3rd. Nate, are you a yes baller?
I am not a yes baller. No. How do I become a yes baller?
Well, Yes Ball is a Facebook group. It's got almost 7,000 members, and it is run by this gentleman, Michael Leavitt. And Michael is from suburban Detroit. He runs the group. He's also the father of a college bowler, and his son competes for Madonna University, also in the Detroit area. So Yes Ball Nation is taking over Bowling with the Fef in a week. And to be in Yes Ball, you just have to search it on Facebook and and click join. I'm sure he'd be happy to have you. But I've mentioned many times, I'm a yes baller. I'm in Bombers bowling, 10-pin lifers, sweep the racker. I love all different kinds of bowling content, so I'm excited to have him on. He seems like he's got a great personality on him, and it'll be great to have him on the show and see it firsthand. Jersey Edwin says the Fef. Love that. He's from the La Crosse area, and I know he works hard on his game and on content, creating content. So thanks for joining us at the end of this one. But Nate, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and best of luck as you live the dream that most of us all have had at one time or another, and that's going out on the PBA tour and competing against the best in the world.
Absolutely. The Fef, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And, again, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and thank you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, and hope to be back on soon.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Be just and fear not, and we will see you again next week.